I'm Lauren with Pack Hacker, and in this video we're taking a detailed look at the Anker Nano travel adapter, which I've been testing for the last month. Let's dive in. So this is not a voltage converter. This is just to adapt whatever devices you have so that you can charge in other countries. It works in 200 other countries and regions. So you can see the different ports on the back here, and that's what you engage in order to be able to plug it in when you're traveling abroad. They have a lot of this information, or all of this information on their site of what it's compatible with and everything, so definitely check that out. But in order to actually engage these plugs, what you do, or these prongs, what you do is you push this down. You can see it pushes in, you slide it over, and then it snaps into place and pushes back out. So this is if you bring it up a little closer to the camera, it tells you US and AU and then UK, and then this one down here pops out at the bottom. Oh shoot, I need to put that back in. That pops out at the bottom as well. So you have obviously all that different compatibility. The thing that I noticed the most with this is it sometimes would not actually snap into place. So I would push this down, slide it over, and here's a good example. It felt like and looks like I pushed it all the way to the side, but it's not actually popped out. So that didn't actually lock in place. So like, let's say I do that again. It's not actually locked in place. When I go and plug this in, it's just going to actually push back into, like, it's not going to plug into the wall because the prongs are going to go back into the actual device itself. So kind of got to listen for that click to actually like click into place. That for me was more of a user error thing. Once I got used to it, I just made sure that it was in place before I tried to plug anything in, and I didn't have any issues with it like falling out or anything once it was actually inside of the wall. If anything, actually, this slim design, which we'll talk about that packability in a second, this slim design made it less likely to fall out of a wall because it's thinner, so it goes down more instead of out. When I did run into a couple of issues though, because sometimes the plug would be a little bit like too close to a tabletop or something, like, and something immovable. So there was one point where I tried to plug it in and I actually couldn't get it into the wall. We can pop up a picture of what it looked like. And I had to, instead of using this UK plug, which is what I needed to be using, I had to use this plug down here. And it worked because it was a universal adapter, like a universal plug, and it had that universal port. But theoretically, if maybe I needed to use that US port or this US prongs, it wouldn't have worked. So that was the only thing that I possibly ran into with like functionality with this. Otherwise, it worked really well. So on their site, they have a full breakdown, and we can pop up a picture really quick of what that looks like. But they have a full breakdown on like what changes in terms of power based off of how many devices you have plugged in. So we have USB-A ports on the bottom, and then we have USB-C on the side, and then we have an AC outlet on the front. This is only a 2-prong outlet, so if you have something that's grounded, you can't plug this in here, so that's something to keep in mind. And then additionally, with these ports, we have a maximum of 20 watts on the side here, and that's just with this one on the right. This one is only a 15 watt max, and then the bottom USB-A are 12 watt max for either. So if you plug in 2 devices on the sides, you lose the 20 watt, it's only 15 for the both. And again, they have that all laid out on their site. But it really does depend on what you're charging and how many devices you're charging, because the more, like, you can plug in 5 things at one time, but it's not going to charge all of them at absolute max power. Additionally, if you have a laptop and you're traveling with a laptop, you're going to have to bring your own wall charger to plug in here, because you can't plug it in on this side. It's not enough power to actually charge. I have a 13-inch MacBook Pro. That wasn't enough power to actually charge that. It wasn't charging, it just kind of kept it from losing power. So you're gonna have to bring that. So theoretically, this can't replace, if you're traveling with like a large device, theoretically this couldn't replace every single charger you have in your bag. But with myself, I was traveling and I just had I had my phone, I had my AirPods, and I had a couple of battery banks, and I was able to charge all of those devices through the night without issue. So that was really great. For my use case, I didn't have a laptop that I needed to keep topped up. One of the other things that I liked about this was that this little circle on the front actually lights up. So when this is plugged in, it's like a blue color. So it was nice to be able to like glance over and be like, oh, my stuff is still charging, or it's still working. Or at one point I thought I had plugged it in all the way and it was like secure enough, but clearly wasn't actually working. And I was able to fuss with this instead of like plugging in devices and then trying to figure out what wasn't charging and why. So, if maybe your device isn't charging, at least it's not because it's not getting power, because this is theoretically working. It is a bit bright though, so if you don't like light, like I was traveling with somebody who doesn't like light at night in the room, and she was a bit bothered by the blue light, it doesn't bother me, so it's more of like a personal preference than anything at that point, but something to keep in mind, it did have like a decent enough glow to it, to where you can pretty much see it at all times on the bedside table. But it feels like a well-made, well-constructed adapter. I took this for 2.5 weeks and I was using it every single day, and there's no blemishes or anything like that on it, and it's pretty lightweight. But let's look at the packability of it. Pretty much the biggest benefit of this is that this is one of the slimmest travel adapters we've ever seen that has built-in ports into it. So we have a lot that we prefer that are like very, very flat, but they don't actually have built-in ports. You need to bring and use your own plugs. But a lot of adapters, which we'll look at in the next section when we do a quick comparison, they're just so bulky. And what I liked about was it didn't take up so much room in my bag. This is a little disorganized in here, but as an example of like, we have a battery bank that's like 10,000 milliamp hours, and like it's smaller than that. But in the back here, like if I wanted to just slip this into a little mesh pocket, it fits in there so nicely. And I have a air split kit, which I actually don't have with me at this point in time, but I was able to just slide it in there, and it took up about the same amount of space as like it was even with all of my cables and stuff, my really long cables that get wound up and create like a decent amount of bulk. So I think that's really what this does very well, and one of the largest perks of going with this compared to another travel adapter. But let's look at it in comparison to a couple. So when you look at this side by side with another similar travel adapter, this, or at least similar functionality, this is the Anker is just insanely smaller. Like it is way more packable when you put this into a tech pouch, and it's much easier to slide into. Like I was able to slide this into my sling and bring this around with me if I needed to charge up on the go, versus like this one from Epica would just be way too large. You do have more ports. You have 4 USB-A and then only 1 USB-C, and then you can do 3-prong charging here. So there are a couple other benefits, but in terms of functionality and power and all that, like they're pretty similar, especially with all of these port options that they have. You can see a little bit more detail there. They also have a bunch of different versions of these, so you do get that benefit. Like they just released this one, which is the Pulse 45. They released this recently, so it's up to 45 watts. So you have a little bit more, it's a little bit more power for larger devices. So between these, if power is like your biggest thing when you're dealing with these ports, I would say the Anker performs pretty average compared to a lot of more basic travel adapters, or you can do a bit more of an upgrade and get more power. But I think the packability for this Anker is really the largest selling point of it, and why I would go for this one over pretty much any other travel adapter we've tested that has built-in ports. I think it just is the best iteration of that. Just be sure to look at whatever devices you want to be charging. Be sure to look at their site to make sure that it's going to be enough for what you need. But what they have on their site was pretty on par based off of our experience actually using this. So there you have it, the Anker Nano Travel Adapter. Thanks for keeping it here at Pack Hacker, your guide to smarter travel, and we'll see you in the next one.